everybody. Welcome to the February episode of the San Francisco Drupal Users Group. My name is Luke McCormick. I'm Sell Ear on various platforms. And we're gonna get right to it today because I'm having some internet problems and I don't want to slow things down too much. So I'm gonna shift over to people that have more solid internet connections. So for the moment, it is my pleasure to introduce Kristen Pol. She is the co-lead and program manager for the Drupal AI initiative, co-founder at QuantCDN, and a senior technologist for Salsa Digital. And that just, scratches the surface of her contributions. I should mention, by the way, she was last year's Aaron Winborg Award winner, which is, as everyone knows, is a high honor. But for the moment, let's have me do less talking and Kristen do more talking. Let's unmute yourselves for a second. And in 3, 2, 1, give a nice round of applause to Kristen Pol. I think it's only me.
Here, I'll help. Yay!
I did.
All right, and let me unpin myself here.
All right, cool. Well, I have a lot of slides today, but feel free to jump in at any time and raise your hand or put something in the chat. It's a little hard for me to check the chat while I'm presenting, especially in presenter mode. So if someone would be willing, maybe Eric or since Luke's connection's a little bit funky, if someone does have a question, feel free to interrupt me. All right, we're going to talk about what's next for the Drupal AI, a look at the 2026 roadmap. And as Luke said, I am Kristen and I have a lot of hats. A special shout out to Salsa. I'm wearing my Salsa jacket and shirt for funding part of my time on the Drupal AI initiative. And we're going to go over a bit of a history of the Drupal AI initiative. We're going to touch upon the 2026 roadmap. We're going to talk about how we're organized and how we're delivering to that roadmap. And I'll give you a little demo of the Context Control Center, which is one piece of the roadmap. And then I have some slides on getting involved in some resources as well. So I'll give a quick history and overview of the Drupal AI initiative. And this was pulled out a little bit from my Bad Camp presentation for those who were there, which was back in September. But this is going back to, this quote is going back to like June of last year, where Dries said Drupal already has a strong AI foundation with many community-built modules. Now we're channeling this creative energy into a clear, coordinated product vision. So that's very much the roadmap and things that we're going to talk about of how we're taking a lot of these things and trying to make them a reality. And then the timeline, before the initiative was officially announced in June, there were a lot of meetings and organizational things happening behind the scenes. I got involved in about April of last year. It was announced in June. And then after that, we started bringing on more partners. We did a community survey. We did an initial roadmap that was based on the strategy that came out in June of last year. We had a lot of work around the Dries note, prep, and Vienna, being able to show off what we've been doing. Then we had this RFP, which I'll touch upon as well, where we're trying to get more management in place to be able to deliver faster. And then those folks came on board in January of this year, and now we're off to the races and trying to crank through delivering real product. So the vision that was put out last year is being able to democratize AI-powered digital experiences, but make sure that you still have responsible human guidance. So creating intelligent, adaptive digital experiences while keeping the enhancing creativity rather than replacing it. So some of the pillars of the Drupal AI initiative are the AI-human collaboration, making sure that we have good governance. We have our open source principles, of course, and community innovation. So those are kind of underpinning everything that we do. And a more recent blog post from Dries a few months ago, I think, was Drupal has quietly become one of the most AI-ready platforms available. And basically, a lot of the pain points that we saw back in the transition from Drupal 7 to Drupal 8, and probably most, if not all of you, know what I'm talking about, really actually set us up to be a very, a great platform to be able to have AI work with. So we launched last June, and we had a strategy document in place, and then we started building a roadmap, and I touched upon that back in Badcamp. We had some roadmap items, and we were working towards that, and then we revisited that this year, and in January we were revisiting that and making sure that it was aligning to the roadmap, and then what we wanted our goals for 2026. So that if you haven't seen the strategy from last year, we haven't replaced the strategy still is in place, and some links that you can check out when Dries was announcing the initiative back in June, and also the strategy document. And then just last week, Dries put this roadmap doc out for everybody on his website, and then there's a PDF that has all of the information in as well. And so he put out a post. I also put out a post about bringing on this delivery management capability. And then since then, there was a post just this week talking about the the wins from the last few sprints that we've had. So the roadmap talks, or the document and the blog post that Dries put out, which was a collaboration with many people, including all the partners in the AI initiative. So that wasn't just a Dries, writing something and putting it out. We all had made sure that we're all aligned with this strategy and giving input and prioritizing based on what we think is the right thing for Drupal. So the market opportunity is that, as AI dramatically increases the volume of digital content, organizations need to trust a trusted platform to manage, govern, and optimize it at scale. And so this is obviously an opportunity for Drupal. The thing is, probably most of us know that there's a lot of generated content now by AI, and there's a lot of AI slop out there generated by AI. And so we need to make sure that Drupal is not an AI slop generator, but is making sure that it has all the guardrails in place in order to do the right thing, and so that we're a trusted platform to use AI. So the vision is to make Drupal CMS the trusted platform where AI turns organizational knowledge and data into governed digital experiences delivered faster and at scale. So one of the important things about the vision is we are really working closely with the Drupal CMS team, And we're using that as a delivery vehicle because with Drupal core, you can just install whatever you want, and that's great. But we also want to be able to enable, marketers and site builders and small companies and, enterprise to be able to build sites fast and have it all tuned with the best practices that we would expect to have in a CMS. And then having that AI capability baked in smart ways. So if we just rely on just install it on Drupal core and yeah, you could use this, you could use that. That's not going to be an easy way for a lot of people to be able to adopt Drupal and Drupal AI. So Drupal CMS is a really core part of our strategy. And Drupal is already a hub, right? We are always, those that use Drupal in a very advanced way, we connect to different tools and integrations, and, sometimes we have multi-sites or, we've got our CRMs and various things that we're also connected with. So it is an important part of, a web presence. And by enabling AI across all these areas, then we can just become that intelligent hub that helps kind of orchestrate and coordinate between these systems. So the things that we need in place are we have to continue doing innovation and making sure that we're not falling behind. So we need to keep the framework evolving, always keeping on top of what's going on in the AI space, which evolves minute by minute. It's very hard to keep up with what's going on. There's always changes. We always have to pivot on things. But then while that's happening, part of the initiative has to be focused on making things production ready and getting them out the door. So it's a two-pronged approach where we have people focused on innovation and we have people focused specifically on production readiness and making sure that we're able to ship. And like I said before, it's very important that we have this tight collaboration with the CMS team, but it's also important that we're also collaborating with the Drupal core team because some of the things that we want to do actually may need changes back in Drupal core in order to enable them within Drupal CMS and with Drupal AI. So it's basically, it's not just that the AI initiative's doing its own thing and building great stuff. We have to, make sure that we're working together with these other teams that have their own goals and find a shared vision. So the capabilities that were put out by in that 1-year plan there were 8 capabilities, and I just briefly touch upon each one of them here. So page generation, we're heavily focused on Canvas right now. So being able to create usable design system-based pages. And last month, I believe, Matt talked about Canvas. So hopefully all of you know what I talk when I say Canvas, probably most people here or all of you know what Canvas is. And that is a key part of the Drupal CMS strategy. And thus, we're trying to make sure that the Canvas AI capabilities are very top-notch. Context management is another capability that we're focused on, which is focused on making sure that your brand, your audience, and your governance context for AI is being able to leverage that in order to make better results within AI. And that's the one that I'll talk about a little bit later and have a demo for, and that's the Context Control Center. Background agents is a very interesting one because this is something that you have to have running on cron jobs, maybe even on other systems, depending on your hosting availability, in order to have long-running processes. But basically, you want to be able to run external, not when you click on a button, but making sure that you can run something that can run accessibility checkers or check SEMrush or whatever it is that you want to run in the background to make sure that those things are able to check quality, check other aspects of your site, and then be able to bring that back into context so that it's available for other agents to be able to use and leverage when they're making decisions. So that one's a pretty interesting one, and there's a lot of exploratory work happening there. For design system integration, for those that saw the Dries note in Vienna, there's this whole site template work that's happening, which is based on design systems, as well as Canvas. Obviously, needs a design system to be able to operate. So just being able to make sure that agents can leverage a design system well, but also be able to use external sources for design systems such as Figma, or being able to design something in another tool and then being able to pull those into Drupal. So that is complementary to the Canvas work, but it also has some of its own challenges to be able to work through. And then there is a pretty broad bucket of content creation and discovery. So, basically finding your content, optimizing it, tools for helping you write things and kind of all the kind of standard things that you would probably expect from AI within a CMS. And advanced governance is a very, very important capability that we're building, and includes, audit trails and versioning and that human in the loop, and making sure that you know what's going on with AI at all times. And this is very, very important in the government space, and in higher ed and in various places where they really need to make sure that they have a traceability through all of the processes and decisions that AI is making. The seventh one here is intelligent site improvements. So this is like being able to pull in information from like Google Analytics and say, oh, okay, is this page performing well? Oh, is there another page that performs better? Giving some ideas of like, here's some ideas based on what I'm seeing with user engagement on how to improve your content. That one's also quite interesting. It tends to be a lot of using like integrations with external tools. So that one is a lot of research and prototyping happening in that space. And then the last one is the multi-channel campaigns, and that's tends to be more larger enterprises that might do that, but being able to, create campaigns and have multi-channel distribution, multiple sites working together, pushing stuff out to social media and things like that in a coordinated fashion. So these are the 8 capabilities that are listed in the 2026 roadmap. And maybe I'll pause just for a second, because I have a lot of slides and a demo, and I want to make sure that I'm not missing anybody's questions. So I'll just pause for a second, see if anybody has anything. Don't see anything in the chat, but feel free to raise your hand, or we'll give it a sec. All right.
I'll read the question that's in the
Is there
chat, which says, I'm new to use. Oh,
yeah, cool. Yeah, I
Uh,
see it. I see it.
Rupp says, "Oh, you do? Okay.
I'm new to using AI with Drupal, but I want to stay in the loop. So today, i.e. next 6 months, in Drupal AI Drupal AI ready to be used in production sites in some form or fashion? For new clients, should I begin building on it? Or are we still exploring? That's a very, very good question and very relevant. So there are definitely some things that are already ready, and we're shipped with Drupal CMS just last month. So Drupal CMS 2.0 has some AI capabilities built in. There's some Canvas AI work in there. There's easier onboarding with like a dashboard. There's a Mazy provider if you want to just to play around with AI before doing too much with it, because there's some free tokens in there or free credits in there for you if you want to play around. So there's definitely, there are things that you can use already and that are production ready, and people are using them in the real world. And there's a number of case studies actually on the Drupal.org website where you can go and see where real use cases that people are using it in production. That said, we're still building a lot. So I guess it kind of depends on what your specific goals are for for AI. But yeah, so we are continuing to build, and now we've really accelerated things in January by bringing on the new management teams, which are QED 42 on the innovation side and 1X Internet on the production side, and having a much more coordinated effort across all the teams. So I would expect a very large amount of results in the next few months as we're working through the sprint process. And I'll talk a little bit about that more in a bit. But yeah, so it's a mix. There's definitely stuff you can use now. There's stuff that's, you could use if you're a site builder and maybe a little bit of a developer or an advanced site builder that you can, kind of glue together yourself. Lots of tutorials and stuff. And then a lot more if you're, obviously more advanced as a developer. But yeah, stay tuned. We're working on some cool stuff for the Chicago Dries Note as well. So there's going to be some fun stuff that we show off there. And watch this space because, yeah, we should have regular announcements. We have a blog specifically for the AI initiative where we announce things that are rolling out. So, yeah. All right. Let's keep going. And so I'm talking a little. So I'm going to talk a little bit just how we're organized and how we're delivering results. And so we have a very large group, and I'll give you some numbers in a bit, but basically having this roadmap and this shared vision and having a large group of folks to be able to drive that is super important. So we're a global team, and we're all committed to this shared vision. And the roadmap that I went over was something that not only Dries and the leadership team of the AI initiative, participated in shaping. It was also all of the partners that are part of the initiative. We went over it with them and got feedback, and it helped shape what was published last week. So this is actually a snapshot from the BadCamp presentation, and so the funding numbers are a little off, and I'll give you the new numbers in a sec. But I think it just gives you a flavor for what the initiative, sort of the structure of the initiative. So the idea is, we launched with the strategy, and this was back in June of last year. This leadership team that we put together. And then this funded delivery team where we have like a dedicated technical lead. That's Marcus from Freely Give. And we have, now that we have the funded delivery managers in place as well, then that's been a huge help. And then we have a lot of focus areas that that we're working in parallel. And then then we have operational funds to be able to like hire management or pay for the technical leadership. And then we have all of the people that are part of the initiative. So the new numbers, I just looked at them right before this. We're just up to 30 partners. We have a new partner that actually they started contributing on Context Control Center a week or two ago, even though they hadn't signed all the paperwork yet. So but yeah, we have 30 partners, and the way it works with the partners is there's gold and silver. And so if you're a gold partner, you give money, but you also actually provide one pledged full-time equivalent contributor, which is a huge thing. So that's why these are partners, not sponsors. They're actually contributing with us to build it. But in reality, there's actually multiple people that help out. So it's more than 50 contributors in total. And that's not even including people who are not official partners in the initiative. We also have regular contributors who aren't official partners. 280K in actual cash funds, not in the bank, because some of that's been spent on some of the management and stuff, but we've pulled that much in since the start of the initiative. And if you translate all the contributor time with a reasonable market rate, then it's really more like 1.5 million in cash and in kind. So we are quite mighty for just officially launching from last June. And I went through and made sure that I added all the partners here to this logo wall. There is one that isn't shown because they asked to be anonymous. So I think we should have 29 logos on there, but we have 30 partners. And so yeah, it's a very different funding model than what you see in open source. You have to not only give money, but you have to contribute. And it's pretty, having someone work half-time or full-time. I mean, you can have more than one person and split it a bit, but having that amount of dedication to an open source initiative is quite interesting and unprecedented. I don't think I've ever seen anything organized this way before. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of collaboration across a lot of different groups. So we have daily, we're working with the Drupal Association all the time, and the Drupal CMS group, and I guess I should have put Drupal Core, but also so our partners, and then the external community, who's still obviously this all done in Drupal.org issues or GitLab as we're moving over to that. So all of this work is, or more than happy, we'd love to have additional contributors as well. So this is not, a closed system from that respect. And we have a number of teams. So we got a leadership team, the innovation and production team that I mentioned. We also have a marketing team, UX team, and a QA team. So I like to joke that we're kind of like a small startup. We got all the departments, and we've got our seed funding, and we're off to the races. So the way that the development is working as of, we did a pilot sprint in December, but starting in January, we started doing official sprints. So we have 2-week sprints, and the rough process is we have a planning sheet where people say, each month, this person has this many hours, this person has this many hours. And then there's a planning meeting every other Monday where people attend, and we try to, all of the product managers and product owners have gotten together and have a backlog that's been curated and so that we could talk through those with the contributors so they know what's coming down the pipe for the sprint. Then the contributors self-assign issues that they want to work on during the sprint. They work on them. There's also daily stand-ups at 2 times because we've got people all over the world. So people can pop in and talk about any blockers they have or questions or brainstorm. And then at the end of the week, they fill in a kind of status report saying what they worked on. And then every 2 weeks at the end of the sprint, there is a review meeting, which we have demos, which is really fun because people get to demo work that they've completed during the sprint. So I got to do that the last couple demos with the Context Control Center. So it's pretty fun to do that. Next one's tomorrow. And then all of the issues are on Drupal.org, eventually in GitLab, but we have kind of a tracker that some people use where it says like how much time people are committed and what issues they're working on, and these are all show up due to tagging. And Jamie from Freely Give is vibe coded most of this. He's not a coder, but he's kind of spearheaded the whole AI bandwagon back a couple of years ago. So so there's a lot. So in this tracker, there's actually even more organizations that are tracked beyond the official partners, as well as additional contributors. And these are people that have been more heavily involved. So there's a lot going on there. So some recent wins from this last 4 weeks and the first sprints. We had the largest patch release in the history of the Drupal AI module. That's like our core module, which was pretty spectacular. So that was a big deal. Also had and I mentioned this earlier, the dashboard and the Maisie provider went out in Drupal CMS 2.0, as well as a number of other things. There's an article that was put out by Matthew Saunders a couple weeks ago about that. And then, we have all of these fun demos that we get to do in order to see, what people are working on and how they're progressing. In the current sprint, like I mentioned, we're split between innovation and production. So just gives you a flavor of the types of things that we're working on. We have Context Control Center, which we'll see in a little bit. Canvas AI is super important. Flow Drop is super cool. I don't know if you've seen that. There's been some demo videos out. So it's a really it's a UI-based way of like creating agents and things like that. The tool API has been very important. So a tool is just like it's a tool. A tool isn't an AI thing, but AI uses tools. Basically, it's just like it can do a task, right? So it's like it can, create a content type, or it can create a field, or it can, do something, and then agents are able to use those tools. And then, of course, our AI agents and background agents. So there's a lot of work happening there. And then on the production side, we're really trying to get the 1.3.0 out soon. And last time I checked, all of the must-haves were done. So we're just working on some nice-to-haves, and I don't have an official release for that, but hopefully soon, because Context Control Center needs to actually work on 1.3. And then a number of other things, doing a lot of work with like the Symphony team, which is actually on the innovation side as well, trying to understand how to leverage some of the Symphony stuff under the hood, a lot of UX improvements, and there's a lot going on. And then if that's not enough, we have a whole marketing team focused on a lot of things. And this is their focus for 2026. And there's a lot more detail that Paul from 1X put together and just presented recently to all the partners of trying to get them engaged and working on that stuff. So We want to be everywhere. So there's like this New York City event coming up that hopefully we will do. I think that's in May. But yeah, there's a lot of stuff in Europe. There's a lot of folks in the initiative that are in Europe and UK. So this is just one of the slides that came out of one of the, marketing events. And this was something that they went to, which was not a Drupal event. So it was London Tech Week. This was last year. And these are all different companies. So they're all wearing the same shirt, but they're all coming from different companies and with a unified face to say that, we are Drupal AI. So it's a really I really love the, we're not competing, right? We're trying to grow the pie, right? It's like it's good for all of us to work together so that Drupal thrives. All right, so before I jump into Context Control Center, yeah, just checking in. Let's see. Any other questions before I dive in? I'll do a quick overview of CCC and then I'll do a little demo. All right, going once, going twice. All right, cool.
All right.
Okay, so sneak peek at Context Control Center. So I already talked about it a little bit because that was the context management, which is one of the main capabilities that's in the 2026 roadmap. But so Context Control Center, or CCC, gives AI a shared organizational context so that content and experiences stay accurate, compliant, and on brand. So the idea is to have a place within Drupal where you can store or retrieve from other storage mechanisms, but both models, in order to be able to have context that makes sense for your website. So this can be your style guides, your brand guidelines, editorial standards, so forth, so that when AI in Drupal is trying to do things like write content for you, create landing pages, review stuff, it's using this context, this information, so that when it writes something, it sounds right. It doesn't just sound like, what is this? It's not AI slop, right? It is actually your brand, your voice, your standards. And so it's very, very important that you have that baked in a way that the system understands how to use it, so that you get good results. All right, let me pop out and do a demo. Do a time check. Okay. And even if we don't have time for the rest of the slides, they're mostly like resources and stuff, so that's fine. Okay, so this is Context Control Center. So there's just a very simple overview page. This will probably get made prettier after Chicago, but it's fine for now. Gives you some quick links and off to some documentation and everything. So so ahead of time, I already put in some context, so we didn't have to see all of that. But so these three things here are actually from the Vienna DrupalCon Vienna Dries note. These were three things that were written by Aidan Foster in order to do the Vienna Dries note, where we use Context Control Center, and then we showed Canvas building pages. I think we had one where it didn't use context and the results weren't very good, and then we used context and they were a lot better. So these are the ones that he had put together for that. And so if we just go and look at one of them, so we have this fictitious company called FinDrop, which is a financial company, software as a service. And then, so here's an example of just this, information about it. Something that just came in this sprint is we have a new Markdown editor, which is super awesome because what we have is all our static context is stored in Markdown. So that's super fun, and I merged that in last weekend. So yeah, I was super, and it's actually kind of fun because you can do that, and there's a little diff in there that shows you a little highlight of what the changes were. So that's an example of a static context item. So at the moment, Context Control Center, even though we will be doing dynamic sources such as Google Analytics and other places, right now it is just static context that you can enter in. And one of the big things that happened, actually have a version. This is what it looked like for Vienna, pretty much, except for ignore the global context one. And you'll see that, yeah, no Markdown editor, not a whole lot of information here. Also, no, like, this is actually, so for those that are more on the developer side, this was prototyped. This was basically a collaboration. So we were doing a bunch of stuff for the Dries note and doing Salsa is very interested in like design system metadata stuff. And then we were doing a bunch of kind of prototyping and research around that. Context Control Center was born kind of out of collaboration with conversations with Salsa and Freely Give. And we, Ahmed at Salsa built a quick prototype, like over the weekend of like, oh, we could use something like that. And we're like, cool. And we started using it. We're like, oh, yes, this is what we want. So it ended up being part of the Dries note in this fashion. But it was a quick prototype. So these are config entities for those that are backend folks. But we wanted to be able to do revisioning and moderation and all this other stuff, normal like content management that you would do with, blog posts and articles and things. So this is what it looked like before. And then now we have all of the, stuff that you would expect to have right on the side here. You've got, you got moderation, even scheduling, because that's something that's in Drupal CMS out of the box. Not that everybody would want to schedule their context to, be published and unpublished, but it's available. And then we've got this pretty cool Markdown editor, which I love. And then something that isn't merged in yet or on my merge request right here is something called Scope, which is going to be going in. And maybe tonight, I might be able to merge it in before I go to bed, which is the idea of scoping context to certain like use cases, languages. If you want to tag it from very specific things, maybe you have a spring, 2026 promotion and you just want to tag it for, context is only related to that. You can actually do site sections. Oops, sorry, Zoom's getting in the way for me. And feel free to jump in with me. I can't get over there because it's Zoom's there we go, being funny. But you can add site sections like based on blog, whatever. This is marketing, HR, about. Oh, it actually didn't die. That's good. Yeah, so then it's like, oh, this context is for marketing stuff. Obviously, these are not obviously, these are plugins. So site build or developers could add additional plugins to be able to say, oh, I want context that's scoped to a specific thing, or add some other way that you can do site sections or something. And then you could also scope context to even just a particular, oops, maybe not that, a particular page or set of pages. It's like, oh, I have, these 2 pages, this context is only relevant for those or whatever. So basically different ways of saying that this context has certain criteria that is relevant for it. So that's not merged in yet, but hopefully tonight or in the next or over the weekend it'll get merged in. So that's basically the making a content type, I mean, a context item, and then so that's inputting it. So you get your context in, and then you need to tell agents to use it because they're not going to just use it out of the box. So there are different ways of configuring it. And we are going to try to make it more that they don't have to configure it, that like there's an auto mode, but that's for next sprint. Haven't done that one yet. But basically, so this is a list of agents that I have in Drupal. And this is like the canvas one that we use. So if I wanted to say, oh, okay, here's my context items, then what do I want to do with these? Do I want to include them, not include them, only include them when relevant? So in this case, I just included them all, which is what we did for Vienna, just to show that it inserted it and it worked. So the when relevant is the one that we're going to do some more work on soon. So another thing that we added recently is being able to see usage of context. So I ran a few pages before we started, and it shows some usage here. Like, oh, okay, this context was used with this agent on these pages. And then if you use it again on the same page, it'll just overwrite this with the new last used so that it doesn't fill up the database. So that's pretty cool. AI has logs as well. If you're a developer, Marcus just released recently a really cool AI agents debugger. Highly recommend. Use it. It's beta, but use it. It's so cool. So you're able to basically debug any agent. So this one I have is the taxonomy agent, and I said, oh, list vocabularies, and you can pick what provider you want to use, and then you see the input. So basically, this is what was going to the agent, and you'll see here where the following is the context. So it inserted, for this one, the taxonomy one, I just chose one of the context items. So it's like, oh, okay, here's the context, use this context. So super, I love this tool. It's amazing. So yeah, so right before this, ignore the error on the right. That was web form, I don't know, somewhere with web form. So we'll ignore that one. But I generated a couple pages right before this. This is with one of the prompts coming from, let's see. So this is a demo. This is the demo environment from the Vienna Dries node, and it has all these prompts that we used back for that. And I basically just copy pasted one of those in, and then it made this page, which is based on all of the context that we provided in terms of like, the types of, brand identity and the tone and all of that stuff. Stats, like this 80% stat, that's all coming from context. And then I made another one, which was using one of the other prompts. And it does take a couple minutes to generate one, which, I mean, we could do it, but yeah. So basically, if we go and do go to Canvas, I'll start one running and then I can see if anybody has any questions. Do a new page. And I didn't do this prompt yet. Take that prompt. We'll see if it actually works. Live demo, I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, so it takes a little bit, chunks away. But and then you end up with something like this. Maybe we can preview it. Yeah, it's a preview mode. Looks, pretty decent. And this is using Mercury Design System as of last October. So, but But while that other page is going, does anyone have any questions about Context Control Center or what's going on there?
Yeah, we got a couple in the chat.
Okay, cool.
Maybe start with this one from David, and he's asking, maybe not, and I think you kind of like showed more of this after the question, but maybe not following this correctly. But is this just conditional additional prompting? Which I think is a good question, just because it's like sometimes these things feel like such a black box, like you know,
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, currently there's three ways that you can get context injected. So it's basically like prompt injection, but in a good way, I guess, because it just plunks it at the end. But there is a little thing at the top that says only use this if you need it. So there's some caveats there, but it's AI, so But yeah, so basically you can tell it. So those were the you can say for your agent that you always want that context always included in any prompt at the end of any prompt that happens, or you can say never use it. And then the when relevant one is the one that we're going to be working more heavily on this next sprint, where it's should be smarter about it. Like it should take the prompt and looked at the context criteria and also like the purpose of the context and try to find the best match of like what's the top most relevant. And also there are limits as well. Like there's settings. Let's see. So there's settings where um, you don't you can set your token budget and like how many context items are. There's a concept of global items. So if there's something that you definitely want every single agent on your site to always have something, you can do that. Yeah. So yes, it's basically you're just expanding the prompt by injecting the most relevant context in there. So hopefully, David, that hopefully that makes sense. I think
yeah, he said
it's
thanks for clarifying.
okay,
So
cool.
there's also a question from Sean Darmond. When you say from other places, so you mentioned being able to pull things from other places, but be able to centralize these contexts in one place so that our strategic communications unit can provide brand and tone, and they would be shared across all our sites on campus.
That's on the roadmap. Yeah. So you can't do it right now, but yeah, that's on the roadmap to be able to do cross site. So you could have like a central hub where all your context and then all your other sites are do that. Where that is on the roadmap, yeah, it's not a probably not in the next 3 months, maybe a little past that. So right now we're focused on site context. So I actually have a 1.0. So the stuff for near term is really all about like uh, code quality and like buttoning it down, and it's all like static. Really focused on that static context and making it work within one site. The next step will be focusing on I started a features list where it's like being able to, so this is kind of the main focus right now is the static context, and then and the scoping and this. So we also have something called subcontext, which I didn't go into, and then focusing on that select that like smart selection. But then we have this whole idea of like dynamic context or stuff coming from knowledge spaces. Like how do we, have an index of that stuff or be able to provide it. But I think yeah, we have one. Let me find it, which was exactly what you were saying. Yeah, multi-platform context. Yeah. So that don't even have an issue for it yet. I don't know. Like it's uh yeah, so I think not quite there yet. Maybe we could start doing exploratory stuff over the summer or something and start playing around with that. But yeah.
All right. I have a question that kind of relates to a couple things that uh, you both said and that I saw. Uh, the debugger was pretty interesting in that, I was trying to
Yeah.
look to see where it was running off and doing different things. Um, and on a screen you just showed a second ago, yeah, right that. On a screen a second ago, it talked about a token budget.
Yeah.
Particularly when you get things like, tool use and MCP servers and things like that, and different models. Combining all this as I'm using these things, I have only the vaguest idea of how much things are costing, and I'm concerned with that because you run out of time, or you run out of tokens, or you end up doing budgets, and particularly we start getting like multiple agents running. So I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah.
Is there like a accounting function in there somewhere so you can kind of
So
know what you're
not
spending?
yet, but that would be more under the governance capability that we mentioned. So also it's making sure that like having rate limits, or or keeping track of like if you hit a rate limit or things like that. So that's obviously super important. And I know myself, I've been playing around with Opus 4.6, and boy, that's way more expensive than Sonnet 4.5. And I was like, all right, I'm just going to use it for this little thing. Oh, I'm switching back. So, yeah, it is AI can be very cool and useful, but it's also can be very expensive. So,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, I mean, it's opaque enough that it's hard to get a handle of it, especially when there's so many choices. You can do the high, low, max, and you're like, I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah, kind
But
of the Wild West for sure.
yeah.
Um, all right, so I'm going. Oh, bye, Suchi. Thanks for coming. Um, okay, I'm gonna go back to make sure we didn't miss anybody here. I'm looking at the chats. Okay, so we did that one. Yeah, we talked about Sean's and then the prompt injection. Um, yeah, kids are watching Tiny Chef. Oh, how cute. Okay. Let's see. And then David has another one. All right, different question. A few years back, it seemed like the game for enterprise Drupal was consistency and standardized content types and governments and lots of tight control. This seems to fly pretty much in the opposite direction, where lots and lots of things are possible and many doors are open. Do you feel the main use case for AI is helping swing the primary use case back towards every site is special and bespoke versus Aqua Cloud Site Factory plays of your? Okay. Um, yeah, so, or Kathy, were you going to chime in, or I thought I heard you real quick. Okay. So I think I, I would like to think we're trying to do the best of both, where we have a design system and we have brand guidelines, and we're trying to make sure that people are doing good site building with guardrails. In fact, that's something that oh, that's it? Only 25 cents. What? How is that? That's so cheap. Okay. Yeah, Sean's saying we're spending an average of 25 cents a day across all of our sites. That's like, yeah, that's nothing. Um, I think I spent like 50 bucks over the weekend or something. Um, so yeah, so I think having those, so actually someone, so this is something, a topic that was in the, we were talking about the leadership team was that Drupal is the Rails. And actually Scott on the team from Acquia, he has some post that I need to read that's on LinkedIn about it. But we want to make sure that we're providing those rails, right? The guardrails, so that people can be creative and do fun stuff, but within the bounds that we're expecting, right? We don't want them just to build anything they want. So in Canvas, they should use the design system and the components and stay within those guidelines, and the content type templates that they can make need to use it. It all needs to be like really tie together. Otherwise, yeah, it could make it very messy. So it goes back to best practices of site building, and which is why we're very heavily aligned with Drupal CMS, because then we can be opinionated and say, here's a good way to do it. I mean, obviously, you could still install whatever site template or sorry, any design system that works with Drupal within that. But in terms of like the standard configurations and making sure you have the right governance modules installed and that you can and see what's going on. So yeah, so I don't think I totally answered you, David, but I think we don't want every site to be completely bespoke in that way. I mean, it should say their own. It should be bespoke in the sense that they should be able to say you should have their voice, right? It should have their feel. But the underlying code should be clean and it should be based on their design system. And, we want to make sure that things are meeting accessibility standards and all that kind of stuff. So, which is, I mean, that's no small thing. Once you let the AI genie out of the bottle and design and site building are basically free, does governance matter? Or a strong seat at table? Yeah, well, I mean, people are wondering like, why use a CMS? I'm just going to go and have Claude Code make me a website or whatever. So there's that. But it's just, it's going to build whatever it's used to building, right? It's going to build you a React site or whatever, just what it's used to doing. So I think the important thing is the hope is that we're setting the foundation in place so that Drupal is the hub, right, and is able to integrate with the things that people use on a day-to-day basis. It would be difficult just to say Claude Code, make me a website and have all the. I mean, if an advanced person, I guess, could probably do that, but then you're gonna have to maintain that and do something with it. But yeah, does code quality matter anymore? It's funny you say that. Yeah, so we were just adding a bunch of linting stuff and agents MD for your code quality is really nice for the backend folks. We were just adding that for Context Control Center. Just merged that in actually right before this meeting so that there's a nice, what was it? It was, oops. It was there. Kind of cool thing. Sorry, I've got the chat in my way though. I can't see. So yeah, so they're basically using this Drupal coding standard skill. So we just merged in some instructions for how to get that, and then it adds this agents MD file to your AI environment, and then you can go in and use that. And yeah, so we're hoping to keep the code quality good, but all right, David, not being an AI nihilist here, but chewing through all of the above in my day job and not sure what the answer. Yeah, no, it's a lot, and there's a lot going on, and yeah, and I know we're technically out of time, so I just don't necessarily need to go through the rest of the slides, but let me just quickly show you what's there, and I can share the slides later. But so
Yeah,
I
I think
did
we
the.
actually have an hour and a half for the, for the
Oh,
whole
okay.
program if needed.
Okay, gotcha. All right, well, I'll just zoom through the rest of them. So we did that. Actually, one thing I want to shout out is right before this, I looked to see, so we got 2-week sprints in the last 2 weeks. Sprint ends tomorrow. I checked to see who contributed to Context Control Center in that sprint. 16 organizations, 12 of which are AI initiative partners, 4 that are other organizations that are, some are probably DCPs, Drupal certified partners, but over 20 people collaborated. So I thought that was pretty awesome. Special shout outs. I mean, all these people are amazing, but I want a special shout out to Aiden Foster and Emma Harrell, who have been, well, Emma was a Bad Camp keynote last year. So they've been, we meet regularly on UX stuff for Context Control Center. And also a new person in the last couple of weeks is Dima and his developer Konstantin, who has been, he's the reason why I was able to merge that that agent's MD merge request just before this, because he's been helping out a lot, and he's just his organization is just joining as a partner. So lots of cool things. Yeah, pretty exciting. Yeah, so the rest of it is just like how to get involved, whether you want to be a partner or not. There's various public channels in Drupal Slack you can check out. There's meetings there's a Slack meeting in the AI Contrib channel on Mondays. There are UX meetings on Mondays that are Zoom, and same with marketing as well. And you can become a partner if you're interested. Like I said, we got 30 partners and we're growing. I'm not going to give you all the whole spiel. My personal favorite, though, is working with amazing people. So yeah, it's been super great. Jumping on one of the stand-ups and just talking with someone from Rob from Kalamuna, or Artem from 1X, or Marcus from Freely Give, or all of these different people from all these different organizations jumping on and like collaborating. It's been pretty amazing. So yeah. So, and then I just have a number of resources as well, which is, so there was a bunch of blog posts that went out, which I mentioned, I think I mentioned all of them, but basically the Drupal CMS one that went out by Matthew, Dree's post that went out last week, mine went out kind of in tandem with that, which is the third bullet. And then 1X and QED42 put out this last one on Monday. So it kind of paints the picture of the roadmap and kind of how we're doing delivery now and kind of some of the results. And we'll be in Chicago. There's a lot there. There's a whole AI summit that's available on Monday. Of course, the Dries Note will have a lot of AI stuff in it. There's a specific AI keynote, which is awesome. And then I put together a super BOF, so we're going to have that on Wednesday at lunch for those who are there, and then contribution, especially on Friday. And then a number of us have sessions from the initiative, as well as plenty of other AI sessions too. And then we're going to restart the webinar series. We took a little hiatus, but restart that for end user, like case study based webinars. So that's cool. And of course, we'll be in Rotterdam, and there's going to be an enterprise summit also in Rotterdam. You can try various demos. These are ones from Amazy, and then there's more. So Marcus puts out stuff on workflows of AI, and then also Drupal Forge has demos. And yeah, other stuff to learn. Join Slack. But yeah, that was pretty much all of them. So we did some questions. I don't know if we have any others, but happy to have more, or we can call it either way.
All right. If anybody has questions, raise your hand using Zoom. Dustin's applauding, but we'll get to that in just a moment. I think we're at time though, so everybody unmute who's ready to. And let's give Kristen a round of applause for a great session here, shall we?
All right,
Thanks, Kristen.
We got the Zoom. Thank you very much. Appreciate you coming out. And yeah, feel free to ping me on Drupal Slack if you have follow-up questions about any of this. Or if you happen to be in the Santa Cruz area, I'm in Santa Cruz, California, happy to have a coffee or lunch or whatever and hang out and chat. But not just AI, anything, whatever, anything Drupal or not Drupal, I guess. All right, thanks everybody. And I will stop sharing.
All right, I wanted to give a announcement for next month. We're gonna have Mike Herschel and maybe Andy, I don't know, from Dripyard. So that should be fun. Thank you all for coming, and I appreciate you. All right.
Thanks for organizing.
Good night.